Thank you very much for asking me to. Sorry, I've got a message. Thank you very much for asking me to participate in this second season of Reviewers, whatever. And today you've asked me to write comments how to write comments to the editors. So not so much to the authors, but they go hand in hand, but to the editors, and along with how to write a recommendation for a decision. And you've given the real chestnut for today to Risha, who you asked to talk about writing a terrible review. And that's something I think we all have to avoid doing, but I would love to do one day, just as a stunt, but obviously I can't. But anyway, how to write comments to the editors and decision recommendations. Sorry, I need to, there we go. So why should we write these comments, and should they be confidential? Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. And so we have to consider that, especially in this day and age of freedom of information, access to things that go on behind the scenes, that we really, so we need to be very careful. So we need to give good advice to the editor. Sorry, I don't know why it's not moving. There it is. So the Oxford English Dictionary of Definition of Confidential is private or restricted information. And I think one has to distinguish between private or restricted as opposed to secret or top secret. And top secret are usually items for government, for defense, God knows what, going on behind the scene. And I don't think there's any place for that here. And private or restricted information, well, I don't think we should be writing anything that we don't want others to share or to see. So as far as I'm concerned, it's not private, nor is it restricted when I write to the editor. It's up to the editor to decide what to share. So the peer review is the most important thing. This is what we're talking about in this whole season, peer review, which should assist editors in making decisions about publishing a manuscript, whether or not to publish a manuscript. And the comments to the editor are an aid to that goal. So if the reviewer provides a summary assessment of the manuscript with justifications for the recommended disposition, whether to accept or reject or to consider a major revision or a minor revision, these are things that should be assisting the editor as to whether he or she should go ahead and publish this paper. It's one of the things. These comments can be brief. They should not simply repeat what was said to the authors. So the authors hopefully will have had good feedback from the reviewer, which will have been shared with them by the editor. But the confidential comments to the editor shouldn't be a repeat of those that you have written for the authors. They should give an overview assessment of the manuscript with supporting reasons. And it is helpful, I think I've just missed something out. Oh, no, I haven't. Sorry, I have missed something out. Sorry, I clicked too many times. So it should be helpful to the editors to provide an assessment of whether the article meets the highest quality standards. So what is considered to be the highest standards, and who decides? We know about this triangle of research from the case report, which is the lowest of the low to the highest quality of research with a double-blind randomized study. But is it all about the research quality, or is it about the research, about the standard of the paper in itself, not just research, whether it's innovative, whether it's adding anything to our knowledge. So all these things contribute to what is the highest quality standard. So we need to check for plagiarism. There are several ways we can do this, but I've been using, for example, I've been working on some theses for another university this morning using PlagScan, PLAGSCAN, which is one way of checking. It's quite a good algorithm for checking plagiarism, but I don't know what Professor Marotra uses, but I'm sure there is something in-house. But then if there's any concern about plagiarism, and you don't actually need software sometime to identify that, then these concerns need to be raised. Otherwise, there is a possible conflict, a breach of publication, there's a breach of scientific ethics, and ethics in general, and there's a failure to adequately disclose competing interests, which I will come to again at a later point. So we need all these things have to be considered when we're talking directly to the editor. We have checked that, and we can then make a comment to the editor to say whether or not it's the highest standards and whether or not there's any evidence of plagiarism. So, and we need to make a specific statement regarding acceptance or rejection in these comments to the editor. So there's no point being woolly about it. The editor has asked you to review a paper, and in your comment to the editor, your confidential or semi-confidential, not confidential at all, statement to the editor, you need to say quite clearly what you think should happen to the paper, reject or revision or some form, or accept, and you need to make it very clear why. Also, very important, so we've talked about plagiarism, but equally, there are some articles that may be controversial. They may be controversial because they're new techniques, because they are written by somebody you think might be a little unusual in their approach to their science, how they conduct their science. So the editor needs to be aware of these things if you think that, and he or she may then require special consideration before proceeding to publication. And it is essential that there's a consistency in the reviews between the comments to the authors and the recommended disposition. So you can't say really to the authors, you might reject a manuscript, but ask the authors for revision in the comments. And this discrepancy can be handled effectively by the editor if comments to the editor are provided, but only if they're provided. So, for example, there are many problems with this manuscript that individually may be correctable, but collectively are of concern. If the journal really needs a publication in this topic area, I would pass, I would leave it, and wait for a better quality work. So that is an example where there needs to be some degree of consistency between what you've written to the authors. Sorry, I've gone back. And then again, you may get something like the reviewer may recommend a major revision, but the comments may be all laudatory, praiseworthy. Again, the editor will render a decision more effectively if provided with confidential comments explaining the underlying concerns that motivated a request for significant revision. So why are we asking for revisions? And we need to make this absolutely clear. Is it minor, in which case the suggestions need to be made, but it still needs to be re-reviewed to ensure that your suggestions have been adopted? And if not, why? So you're making a comment to the editor, you're making a suggestion to the editor. You've asked the authors to make some changes, when you re-review, you will expect that those changes have been made. And if not, there needs to be jolly good reasons. Are the revisions required because it's just language? In which case, leave it to the in-house editor. The language sometimes is very poor. Most journals, including the Journal of Oral Biology and Craniofacial Research, are written in English. English is widely spoken, but it's not the universal language, and some people don't speak English very well. They speak it well, but not very well, and they have difficulty. And in that case, they should be asked to use a professional translation service or grab a native speaker. But the language is important, because if it's not clear, then you can't understand what's going on, and therefore the article is not publishable, and that's something you then have to say to the editor. And in my own personal experience, of reviewing for many, many years, I always try to encourage. So some of these problems are purely nationality, difficult facilities, so some people have great difficulty accessing the right facilities to write papers, having the right support, and some people are just starting their career. So these papers, these comments to the authors need to be very clear and understanding, and likewise that needs to be reflected when you then comment to the editor. Conflicts of interest. On every the Elsevier management system, publication system, there's a little thing, a red thing, declaration of competing interests. And there's a huge, great list of things that you have to say you are not involved in. And this is very important, that there's no conflict of interest. And if there is, now, it does happen sometimes, and maybe not accepting to review in the first place would have been better, unless the editor thinks there are very valid reasons for wanting your review, e.g. a paper on a very specialist topic in which you, and probably you alone, are the expert. That's unusual, but there may be ways round that. I listened to a very interesting webinar last week from the European Association, from somebody many of you will know, Professor Maurice Mamertz in Brussels, talking about temporomandibular joints. And he, at the very beginning of his talk, declared an interest because he manufactures the various systems that lead to the construction of custom-made temporomandibular joint implants. So that's how to do it. Now, there's a thing, the overall manuscript score, that's something, sorry, let me just check, yes, that appears not in every review, and I assume that it's something that the editor of the Journal of Oral Biology and Craniofacial Research likes, but in other journals using the same platform, it doesn't appear. So this is something that appears only intermittently. It's an additional guide for the editor. It's numbered from 0 to 100. I have had no advice about this. Maybe that's a topic we could talk about briefly after this. Is there a formula? Is there some way we should be calculating it? Or is it just purely how you feel about a paper? Terribly, terribly subjective. It really does remain at the reviewer's discretion. Reviewer tolerance and courtesy. Sometimes suggestions that you have made, both to the author and also to the editor. In the past, I've had this problem on occasion, not very often, having made some suggestions for change following a major or minor revision decision are not addressed. And that can be quite irritating. And I think one has to be very careful not to get irritated. One needs to be very even-tempered about reviewing, about many things in life, but in particular about reviewers. Because at the end of the day, you don't really know what might come out. So you say only what can be repeated for open access or closed access. You can write what you want to the editor, but if it's open access, that's more difficult. But it's rather like writing a CV for somebody. You've been asked to write a CV for somebody, and then you write a terrible CV without justification. And I don't think that's right. And if you're going to write terrible CVs, or if you're going to write terrible reviews or make terrible comments, you need to be very careful. You need to be very careful and justify what you have said, so that if in future there is a challenge for whatever reason, e.g., for example, somebody is unhappy about an unfavorable decision, or somebody else has written on the same subjects and challenges the decision, then you need to be absolutely sure of what you have said, both to the author and to the editor, in your comments to the editor. And I don't know what the freedom of information laws are in India. They're quite strong in the UK, and things get out with a bit of a few requests, and they're called freedom of information requests. I'm sure they vary around the world. They may not exist, or they are. So one needs to be very careful what one says, whether it's the authors and in particular to the editors. And the editors are relying on you for sound advice. So there we are. Thank you very much. That's a view of the coastline in Dorset, where I live. It's a lovely little place in the middle here, which is actually subtropical gardens. So it tries to be a little India, just from inland. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Now, if there are any questions from the audience, you may raise your hand and we may invite you, or you may put your question in the chat so that we can read it for you for Mr. Marcus. One thing I had in mind that you said, we do have in GeoBCR, we do have a marking score
Yes.
from 0 to 100. Yes, it's truly subjective. It's after reading the article, what do you want to give as an overall score based on your read of the article? I think that helps me if there is one aspect, any one aspect of the article which the reviewer feels that the article was good, definitely the score would be above 40. So anything which is below 40, I understand that there's nothing to be taken forward to, but if scoring above 40, that means there's something good in the article which maybe if improved with the reviewers' comments and suggestions, that may be taken further ahead. I don't know, how do you think about it?
Well, it is entirely subjective. Maybe a little template would be helpful. You could add a few, maybe no more than 5 or 6 questions, which would help. And so if you had 5 questions and the maximum of 20 for each, that might focus the mind on the various aspects that make you come to a decision about the number the score that you should give. Very difficult to know. There's another journal that I review, and they do ask a few questions. They don't ask you for score. So that's the other way around, and I could share that with you sometime. I probably shouldn't do that in public.
Yeah.
But we can talk about that sometime, and you could add that onto the Elsevier management platform probably quite easily.
Thank you. I think that's a very good suggestion because when we had our last editorial board meeting, then our section editors also asked, "Do you really want us to score the manuscripts?" And I said, "Yes, we do want the score, but that is a good suggestion that we should put the criteria there so that uh,
Yeah.
it's easy for the reviewers to score it." We did try to score the reviewers, wherein we took it as a part of exercise where myself, Tony, then Richa, and Dr. R.K. Singh, we took up a challenge that after our reviewers workshop last year, how much of impact has it made? So we picked up the 50 best reviewers and the 5 best reviews they had done, and then started scoring them, and then we had the analysis done, and I think Richa will come up with the publication sometime soon, that how was the impact and how did it help the reviewers in improving. So
Well,
with
it's a work in progress, isn't it?
yes, that is a
It's
work in progress.
quite a major work.
Yes.
Because five best reviews from 50 reviewers, there's quite a lot to score. And again, it's consistency of scoring. And we did have a little pilot study between us. And I think I came out, did I come out being more generous or being more horrible?
No, you were more
Was
generous.
I was more generous. Well, there we go. You see, I that comes from years of, well, like you, years of examining in difficult circumstances and reviewing. And I think it's always very difficult to be horrible.
So
But
I'll just share, just because we are talking about it, I thought I'll share it. What are the 10 points we were scoring the reviewers on? So to start with, uh, highlighting the shortcomings, if any, and then the structured comments with clear message and suggestions to improve, very objective, so that very objectively they had commented, and the messages were very clear, comprehensible, and relevant actually. And how do they maintain the professionalism? So they are not downgrading, or they are not very, so they are talking or sending their comments or remarks very empathetically. So they are respecting the reviewers, they are respecting the authors. So that also we were scoring. So this is how these were the points we were discussing on how to. It's still a question because we have been looking on how to score the reviewers, how to find the best reviewers. It's, we haven't come across the best criteria, but we are still looking at various options. And with this, I now stop sharing, and I'm coming back to you with. Let's see how many of you who are ready with your questions and want to ask some question. So if there is any question for Tony, so okay, we do have seen people writing different sort of comments to the author and sort of different type of comments to the editor. So that is very contrasting at times. So they may be writing poor comments to the author, but then to the editor they may be suggesting acceptance. So then the editor becomes puzzled. What is the real motto? What should be the final action to be asked? Uh, and then we have to go for other reviewers and ask other reviewers to put their inputs. So
good.
that's how, yeah. So with this, we come to the next topic of the day: how to write the terrible comments. So 10 tips on writing terrible comments. And for this, I invite uh, my dear friend, Dr. Richa, who is a periodontist and section editor at GeoBCR. She's a FAMER fellow. She's also faculty in charge, IT cell, and this Zoom all is because of her that we have this Zoom meeting for the reviewers workshop. So over to you, Richa. Please share your screen and
thank you, ma'am. Yeah. Is my screen visible, ma'am?
yeah.
So a very good evening to one and all, and welcome to the day 6-7 of the reviewers workshop training. So over this week of season 2, we all have been learning about how to do a peer review of a manuscript. We have learned about the attributes, the do's and don'ts, and through some of the most stalwarts of research all over the world and India. Now there is a twist in this educational voyage. Now what this twist is, we are going to look the other way around. And this other way around is just turning your tables upside down. As it has been rightly said, once you change the way you look at things, even the worst can get the best. But this process of looking the other way around is not that easy. Last season, this process started with the story of Mr. Terror. So let me introduce you to this gentleman. He was a subject expert. He is a subject expert. And he's also an expert in writing terrible reviews. And last year in season 1, we just got a glimpse of an interview of Mr. Terror where he gave some useful tips to our reviewers for writing terrible reviews. The story goes on this year as well. And now Mr. Terror is a prof in the university, and he has a class of his own, an academy that he runs. And this presentation is all about how he presents his tips to the class and how are the participants responding. Now, for every tip he gives, there's a general consensus in the class that each tip is preceded by a question and response by the participants, a summary of that question and answer round, and the take-home tip. So let us see what's happening inside the class. So the first question that comes from Mr. Terror to his participants is, how do you manage time for your peer review? And the respondents are smart enough to answer. Let's see what the responses are. I accept all review invitations, whichever comes. I have all the time to do it. And when I had not been an author, still I reviewed. So that were the contributions. Mr. Terror summarized the effects of these responses and said, yes, we can get overstretched at the cost of reciprocity when we do all the reviews. And when we review, even when we are not experienced and insufficient expertise, it's again a feather in our cap. So the take-home tip 1 by Mr. Terror to his class was, accept a review invitation even when you should not be doing so. So the next question, in what time do you submit the peer review? So let's see what the participants were answering. Now, to tell you, all these participants were again professionals and experts in their subject and have been doing reviews with experience. The participants said that I have never submitted in time and I don't have the time to do it. The other one responded that he often forget deadlines of reviews and sometimes they don't even submit at all. And one said that I also get late reviews, so it is quite easy or normal to give back late reviews. Effects, as Mr. Terror and the class summarized, were that the editors get burdened and they start searching for new ones when we submit late reviews. The authors suffer, and one of the most side effects of this is that some of their colleagues get a chance to do a review. So that's a boon. The take-home tip 2 is never submit review in time. Question number 3 to the class, how do you manage regular reminders for peer review? Well, the smart answer was that I like being personally approached by the editor. At least they are knowing who I am. Otherwise, it's only a routine set of automated messages that we send and receive. What are the effects? The whole process of peer reviewing gets delayed. But the take-home tip is keep ignoring messages from the editor or journal manager. They'll keep on sending. Question number 4. What about pointing possibility of plagiarism in peer review? Let us see what they answer. Well, they don't put efforts to point out any plagiarized content because it's a hard work. Some of them do sometimes when they have less of time because that's an easy way of sending back the manuscript. Effects, it's a race review process. and also a breach of publication ethics. So tip number 4 for the class was that there is no mandate for adhering to publication ethics while reviewing. Question number 5. How do you write a peer review? Well, how do you write peer review? What pattern you follow? Well, there was no proper answer to this because, as they said, they often write general and vague lines and they save a lot of time by doing this. What is the effect of this? The review becomes useless for authors. Editors keep on inviting more reviewers and the reviewer's academic reputation also comes at stake. But the tip number 5, the take-home message, always write a vague review that is not much useful for the authors. So half of the class and half of the tips. The next question comes, what about the structure of the peer review? Well, as we all have learned that there's a big structure, an objective review which we all have to submit. But see what the class has to answer. Well, I'm not much concerned for what are called the key sections of manuscript like scope, novelty, title, clarity, and blah, blah. So what is the effect? We end up with no recommendations for the manuscript because actually they are respecting the author's enthusiasm. So tip number 6, you can always forget key components of article to be reviewed and it's quite normal. What about clarity and fairness of peer review? Let's see. I don't clarify my comments. I can't tell how to improve. I can be harsh at words if I don't like the work, and it's always difficult to appreciate. So what are the effects? We end up with no contribution to the academics and our subject content, and authors will never be grateful to such reviewers. So tip number 7, it is normal to provide unclear, unfair, and biased statements in peer review. The next question that was thrown to the class was, what happens when we have manuscripts for peer review with common interest? And that is very, very common. Now what the class has to answer is, I may use the manuscript details to publish my own work. Actually, it is helping me. I may delay the review process in some jealousy. I may reject the manuscript because I want my own manuscript to be published. So what are the effects? The reviewers get meager benefit of personal advancement, and there is breach in confidentiality of publication ethics. The tip number 8 for the class was, breaching of confidentiality is not punishable, so you may go ahead. What are your reviews on reviewers asking for academic favors during peer review? Well, being experienced in this field, they answered that yes, I do ask authors for citation of my articles because I want my H index to increase. And ultimately, we are professionals and we should help each other. Effects, again, violation of publication ethics. And the take-home tip is, we can violate publication ethics for self-interest, and that's very simple. So any final structuring or reviewing of your written peer review? Do you re-review your reviews? Well, once written, it's done. You don't look back because one of the reasons cited by the participants was that they make no mistakes. The other one answered, why do I remove harsh statements or put compliments for the authors? The effects, it damages academic reputation and it also destroys the sanctity of the whole process. But the take-home messages, there is no need to review your review of others' work because you're so confident about it. So that was Mr. Terev's class. And he also ended up with giving some of the examples of his reviews. Just have a look at them. If the authors are so keen on solving a problem of little practical significance to the field, maybe they should also apply their skills to solving Sudoku. So that was pun in the message, the sarcasm. So these kind of examples Mr. Terev shared with the class. Well, having said this all, we respect you all and we don't want you to get inspired from this story. This is one story I would recommend you should not get inspired from. Now, peer review serves as an essential element for preserving standards of academic publications. But the unfortunate part is it has a poor academic reputation. So peer review reputation is so much bad, so much and so forth, that there's a page on Facebook with the title that reviewer 2 must be stopped. And these are the type of memes which are available on this Facebook page. So this reminds us that as reviewers, we are also on watch by our authors. So we would request you not to be termed as an adversary reviewer or the reviewer too, which needs to be stopped, because the take-home message is that without peer reviews, the publication system can never exist. So today we should commit to give fast, fair, complete, and transparent constructive peer reviews to our authors. Thank you and happy learning.
Thank you, Richa. You have beautifully explained what to do and what not to do. So that was very good, illustrative with examples. I think very well described.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah. So if there are any questions for Richa, we are happy to take them.
Some questions in the chat box for Dr. Marcus, I think.
Yeah. There's one question from Sheetal. John Wiley has a scoring system. It depends on the publisher, whether you have a scoring system or not. So again, Dr. Krishna Subedi is also asking, is there any guidelines to give a score for the article? On what basis, how we can give scores? So I think that should come along with the invitation letter to the reviewer. We this year started giving COPE guidelines along with the invitation letter to reviewer, but we would soon be able to give this scoring system as well, so that you have a structured format to score.
Well, you have it anyway at the top of the reviewer recommendations. So you could have just below that rather than with the letter. Yeah. No more than 5, I would have thought, guidelines. But going back to reach, sorry, I didn't want to barge in. I think, you know, it's very good to have guidelines about how to give a rotten review. But of course, it is unlikely that if you give one rotten review, the editor would ever ask you again. So basically the answer is, if you can't be straight up and say you don't feel able to review this paper, or you don't want to review this paper, don't write a rotten review. You're wasting everybody's time, including your own.
Thank you. So we have circulated in the groups a checklist of do's for the reviewers. Hope everybody has got it. But again, if you have not seen it, so I'll share my screen and just take you to those do's. So this is the checklist, which says do's and don'ts, and we'll forward you again, so that if you need to just go through them, and while you are making your reviews, you may use it. And the other thing is that you would have probably received your assignment, for which you are required to submit your reviews. It is an open access journal, and the manuscript is with you, and we are awaiting your review comments. It won't be possible for us to go through all the comments, but we are trying to give you, by the end of this workshop, comments, the ideal set of comments that should be there, and you may just compare yours with the ideal one and see how it's directing you towards a better writing of the comments for the manuscript. So,
Divya,
yes.
Sorry, there was one comment here from Rupesh Sahu. Should we comment on each and every aspect or section of the paper, or should we focus more on those points requiring corrections? The answer is, I think, to the authors, yes. You need to go through each part, but you can have a question. You put question 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but I think you should go through that in the author's comments. but to the editor, that shouldn't be repeated, because that was what I was saying. You don't want to repeat of what you've written to the authors to go to the editor. The editor can see what you've already written to the author. And so it needs to be much more focused on your opinions, your decisions, and your recommendations.
Thank you. So that's it, I think. Day 7 gone. And tomorrow we'll be talking on something. I'll take you to the system. I'll show you a glimpse of how the editorial system is, and also share with you the reviewers, the best reviewers we have had in the past 1 year. So with this, I think it's time to wind up for the day. So you will get a feedback again. And we also request you to send your audio or video feedback, what all you wish to say to us, and that will be presented on the last day after the panel discussion. So with this, I thank you all for your very, very active participation throughout this training workshop week. And have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.